Back with closing trades right here on ET Now. So far so good. We're holding around that 15,800 mark. But to be fair, this week has been more about consolidation as opposed to bigger moves, much unlike what we saw last week. 87 stocks standing to the decline. So in that sense, marginally, it's the declines taking over within the F&O universe at least. And some of the stocks which have run up quite a bit, they're the ones which are seeing some profit taking. NAM India, for instance, saw some good breakouts last week or so. Some of the Adani names are ebbing off just that wee bit. Adani Ports is down 2.5%. MFSL, UBL, Exide, L&T, Axis Bank, SBI Life. These are your pressure points in trade. But it continues to be yet again a metals day. Everything within the constituent of the index, from Coal India to a Tata Steel to a JSW, they're all holding out very well. Some of the IT names looking good. Big boys like a TCS, Infosys, HCL Technologies, they continue to hold out. And Reliance as well is pushing forward. Reliance is now holding up 1.7%. In fact, well above the 2200 level is where Reliance Industries is currently in trade. Mahantesh Sabarad as well joins in trade right now. Mahantesh, afternoon. I was just chatting with a chartist as well as to while it's a clear mandate from the street that metals continue to be in a super cycle, going by that logic, you think all the dips should be bought and it's a no-brainer?
Yeah, I think most of the metal stocks are doing really well. I would put it this way, that's a commodity rally that is shaping up quite well. It's not limited only to metals. You'll find oil-related stocks going up. You find even agri-commodity related stocks going up. So this is a commodity rally. I would rather call it a broad-based commodity rally. It's also happening due to not just the price phenomenon, that means the price is going up. We are also seeing that activity levels are getting boosted. Much of the capex was not being done in the past few years, and that has lifted the utilization levels, capacity utilization levels of most of the stocks. Or most of the sectors, and that's really helping the commodity rally in a big way. I'm sure this will continue for a few more months.
Yeah, seems to be the case, at least as of now. On, of course, IT and Mahantesh, again, renewed optimism after the TCS, AGM takeaways, wherein the managements, everyone from an N. Chandra to the CEO, stating that they continue to be in a super cycle when it comes to IT, and it's not just near-term visibility, but the long-haul story which continues to be intact for IT. That augurs well for the sector?
Yeah, I think what surprised us in the last year, which was the COVID year, was the IT companies taking to digitalizing their revenue flows in a big way. Not only that, they have won deals not too past have we seen such deal wins by IT companies. For the full year, you would have noticed that the typical growth rate of deal wins would have been 4 to 7%, but here we have deal wins now gathering pace at roughly about 14-15% or even 17%. That gives a great deal of revenue visibility for most of the IT companies. Mind you, they have also had a year where they could focus on their margins. They have upped their EBITDA margins and EBIT margins quite substantially over the past couple of years, and I therefore see that the upcoming year will be a good year for most of these IT companies. They've also done a bit of capital restructuring, I would say, in terms of their buybacks. But buybacks have really helped bring in greater EPS visibility. Not just profit visibility, the EPS visibility is far more for most of the IT companies. So I would share that optimism that the management has been talking about, and would look forward to the IT sector actually outperforming the index by a wide margin.
Let's also bring on board then Rajesh Palvia, who's joining in on the charts. And Rajesh, with the markets looking buoyant at the current levels, do you think it's going to be the broader markets that will take leadership, or are we likely to see the frontliners continue to outperform?
Yeah, good afternoon. So, looking at the setup of the market, my belief is that frontliner will take a lead, and the kind of accumulation activity which we have seen in last couple of days in the frontline stocks is showing that now this rally will continue with the help of frontliner. Yeah, but quality mid-cap stocks will also perform because the some quality mid-cap stocks are also doing good, and a lot of accumulation activity has been seen in mid-cap space also. But my belief is that sector like pharma, IT, metal, these three sectors are looking very promising, and especially in today's session all three sectors are showing very good strength, and the stock from all these three sectors are showing good buying interest. So my belief is that these three sectors will take a lead, and this rally is likely to continue further, and maybe Nifty can surpass 16,000 level in coming weeks. So the very looking at the setup, my belief is that till we are holding above 15,700, 15,650 level, buy and dip should be the strategy in the market, and the sector which we like at the current juncture based on the setup, based on the derivative setup, that pharma, IT and metal space.
So let's talk pharma then in greater detail, Rajesh. Where is it that you're sensing opportunity? Would you be handpicking some of the large cap stocks, or is there a lot of opportunity in some of the mid cap names too?
So from pharma space, we like Aurobindo Pharma, and looking at the setup for Aurobindo Pharma since last 8-10 session, stock was consolidating in a very narrow range, and in today's session we have seen a huge addition in the open interest, and stock managed to give this range breakout. And then looking at the setup, we believe that Aurobindo Pharma can rally further higher towards 1,050, 1,060 level in the coming trading session. One can buy this Aurobindo Pharma at the current level with stop loss of 990. Another stock from pharma large cap, that is Dr. Reddy, is looking very promising. Even if you look at the weekly as well as the daily setup, the stock has managed to give breakout of its last 5-week consolidation range, and the kind of open interest addition, and call writers are unwinding their position at 5,400, 5,450, even 5,500 strike are showing huge unwinding action. So it clearly suggests that that Dr. Reddy may rally from the current level, and maybe possibly we can see a target of 5,550 to 5,600 in very short period of time. So one can keep stop loss of 5,400 to buy Dr. Reddy also.
Okay, that's the take on some of the pharma names which continue to as well hold out. What else is holding out in trade? IT, of course, is a big mover. Along with that, it's not just benchmark or frontline IT names, but even in Emphasis, for instance, that's holding up quite smartly, seeing good OI build up as well when it comes to IT as we speak right now. In fact, most stocks within the IT gamut, everything from a Coforge to an LT Technologies, LT Infotech, TechM, Wipro, Emphasis, what have you, the entire pack is looking very, very lively. Kunal, clearly renewed optimism after the takeaways from the TCS management on the sidelines of the AGM. How would you approach IT right now for those who are looking to add positions, those who are looking to profit take, and those who are looking to buy afresh?
So I would be of the view that I think position should be added into the IT stocks. I think even at current levels, and this time, Aisha, last couple of days at least, we are seeing a new trend that the more of the large cap IT stocks are seeing a cohesive kind of a move where you see HCL Tech, where you see TCS today, for example, leading the charge from the front. You've seen Infosys also doing up pretty well, and this is typically at a time when you don't have those classical mid-cap stocks, which so names like Mindtree and Coforge, they are not moving up by 2 beta or 2x beta of what these large cap stocks are doing. So typically that was the reaction earlier. So whenever you saw the IT stocks moving up higher, the first port of call was to jump onto the mid cap IT names, and specifically the names like Mindtree, Coforge, or maybe Tata Elxsi, because there you used to get better alpha or better returns on a shorter duration of time. But in the last couple of days, you've seen a different texture emerging from the IT pack, and you now have the large cap names showing more signs of stability. This is again a strong move, and again an indication that the entire sector is looking quite strong and buoyant and ready for a move yet again, or a range shift back again on the upside. So I specifically looked at the charts for TCS as well, and I believe that stock is looking quite attractive. I think the previous high for TCS was around the 3350, 3400 odd mark. For itself on the spot levels. The stock had been languishing. It had gone through a 10% correction. Post that, I think it was almost a month and a half back, and now it's making a comeback again for itself. So this could be a big breakout for TCS, and it has this natural habit. Over the last 10-15 years, I've seen that TCS has a habit of making new highs, going through a 10-15% correction, showing not a V-shaped recovery but more of a U-shaped recovery on the charts, and whenever that has happened, the earlier top actually becomes a floor or a resist or a support for the stock. So if that's the case, then we can expect a breakout around 3350, 3400 for TCS over the near term, and post that breakout you may see a shift of range where 3350 would actually become a more of a support for the stock.
Well, just today on the sidelines of the big picture, we were trying to gauge with Hiren Vaid as to where are the opportunities going forward, whether or not the cyclical recovery is in place, how much more legs and headroom does it have, and of course, which are the leaders of tomorrow. So here's a slice of the conversation that we had with both JSPL as well as ICICI Securities.
The production is less, the steel consumption is very high. So we used to consume about 1.6 billion tons steel in the universe, and today the demand is 1.75 billion tons. So there is a net shortage of 150 million tons. The country produces, India produces only 110 million ton maximum. And you can imagine if the second largest steel producer in the world produces only 110 million, then the demand is too wide. So the steel plants take a lot of time to commission and to come on the production. It takes about, in Indian conditions, if it is a greenfield project, it takes about 5 to 7 years time to start a new plant. So today we have 135 million ton of capacity available, but utilization is only 110 million ton because of the resources are not there. And finally, India needs to go to 300 million ton overall steel production consumption by 2030. So the gap is very wide. Gap is 165 million ton. That means 16 or 17 plants of 10 million ton each are required to be installed in this country, or the existing players will have to double their capacities, so that by 2025 or 2026 we reach to a level about 170, 180 million ton. So overall, I would say the demand is going to sustain, and the stimulus package is being declared by the countries like US and Europe and also China. They will keep on pulling the material. And the iron ore prices are going up everywhere. You see that in India, the iron ore price has gone up by 200% in last year.
I think you raised a question that we've been asking ourselves as well through this last few quarters of pandemic that we've experienced. And to be honest, I would say that my thoughts on this has gradually been evolving as I've been thinking and observing the marketplace. So let me share how we've been thinking about this. The point, well, had you asked me this question maybe 4-5 months back, my answer would have been around what you sort of alluded to in your question itself. That yes, there has been a surge up on account of various factors, which includes the factors that you brought out in terms of simply availability, but it's also to do with certain further enabling facts, which is the competing markets, be it the fixed income market or be it the mutual fund industry, had a very tepid, lukewarm sort of traction to these investors. So more money flowing in there, added perhaps to this whole wave. And let's not forget India's penetration into financial markets, particularly equity markets, is abysmally low. So in a way, it is a trend waiting to catch up with what happens as India goes through its own economic journey. It has got to start someday, but perhaps the pandemic has sort of in a way triggered that kind of a journey in that direction at an accident.
Okay, that's the word in from both JSPL as well as ICICI Securities. Mantesh, what is your sense on these platform companies, right? One would have thought that it's only IndiaMart which actually qualifies for a platform company, but there have been existing names like an ICICI Securities as well, for instance, broadening the gamut, adding more profiles and features to the company. Is this the space of these new age companies trying to evolve with the times in the post-pandemic digitization focus era, which should also be of interest to investors?
I think we did talk about how the digitization is helping IT companies usher in newer revenues for themselves. Likewise, the platform companies who are offering consumer-facing platforms are set to do well. You did not mention upcoming IPOs such as that of the Zomatos of the world, which are likely to offer great digitization kind of place for investors. And you will also notice that existing consumer-oriented companies are also set to do well. We already have the likes of a Jubilant Food or even the McDonald's through Westlife development listed in the market. They are rapidly digitizing their revenues as well. The digital flows are much higher for them given this pandemic situation where you have forced lockdowns periodically being set in. So in such a situation, such platform companies will do really well. But then you have to be very careful that are these revenues adding to their already existing revenue streams, or are they just doing their own revenue cannibalization? So if that is going to happen, that is revenue cannibalization is going to happen, I would be a little skeptical of such companies. So ICICI Securities that you now talked of is one such company which is actually perhaps doing cannibalization of its own revenue streams. I would be very careful about such platform companies, but the rest are really doing well.
Yeah, interesting. That's the take coming in ICICI Securities. Just want to check in on what an IndiaMart as well is up to, because this was the post-pandemic discovery when back in 2020 everyone discovered the story, and we've already seen history's proof as to how lucrative this investment has turned out to be. Rajesh, on the charts for both ICICI Securities and IndiaMart.
IndiaMart is in corrective mode, and if you look at the long-term setup for the stock, after hitting a high of around 99.50, stock is now continuously showing some bit of selling pressure at the higher level. And looking at the near-term to short-term setup, my belief is that some more pressure we can see in the stock towards 6500 could be the next support area for the stock. But overall long-term setup is positive for the stocks. Once stock again managed to cross above 7600 level, then possibly again stock can try to reach to its previous all-time high level. So looking at the setup, one should use dips as a buying opportunity towards 6500 is the next support area where one can buy the stock. Looking at the ICICI Security chart, after showing a decent rally, stock since last 10-15 trading session, it's in consolidation range, and the range is like 570 to 620 is the range where stock is consolidating since last 10-15 trading session. But looking at the overall setup, that stock looks good, and once stock manages to cross about 625-630 level, then possibly it will resume its uptrend, and we can see a target of towards 660-680 in the short term basis. So one can keep stop loss around 600 to buy the stock at the current level.
Okay, marking the IT index then, and that trading at a record high. In fact, you've got a lot of resilience being built up into that intraday chart. Take a look at individual names as well. Of course, to your marquee frontliners like TCS, HCL Technologies, Infosys, as well as Tech Mahindra comfortably in the green, but a whole host of the mid caps as well. Coforge doing well. There's Infibeam, Mindtree, Oracle Software up nearly 5%. So clearly seeing some traction building up on that front. Kunal, let's get in a take. What are the levels that you're mapping out on the Nifty IT index? Where does it go from here?
Phenomenal move again, Avan, for the index. I think for the last 1 month, it's risen up 4%. The last 3 months, the index is up 9-10% approximately. But more importantly, this is the 5th straight quarter where you've seen the IT index moving up higher. So I remember from 12,000 or 11,500 kind of levels from March 2020, the index overall is up to almost 28,000 plus levels. So it's a phenomenal uptrend for the IT index. Now, the natural course of the move, when you see such kind of, price appreciation for the index, is that the index has to go into a bit of a narrow consolidation. And every time the index goes into a bit of a narrow band of a consolidation, the next set of targets could be almost a 5 to 10% targets on the upside. So, assuming if 28,000 is the base which we expect that the index could pivot back, again, then we'll be expecting at least another 5 to 10% upside. So that should be closer to 30,000 or 32,000 range for the index over the next 3 to 6 months. So the 5th straight quarter of uptick for IT index, and I think the next set of the quarterly targets now for the index sets it up to almost 30,000, 32,000 levels for itself.
Okay, fair enough. That's the levels to be monitored when it comes to the IT basket. And Mahatesh, curious as to what your outlook is within the IT space and what kind of traction you're expecting going forward.
Let me just bring one perspective about the IT index that has really surprised us in the past 1 year. I've never seen an infeed double in a year. Infosys, in the recent past, it did used to rally quite sharply in more than a decade ago or thereabouts, but for the past 1 year, it's one stock that has really given fantastic return. It's a front line, mind you. So from an outlook perspective, when we find that the IT companies are upbeat in terms of their guidance, in terms of their body language, in terms of their transformation itself that they're doing for their own businesses, gives us great deal of confidence about where these companies can go. I'm sure that while we may not see a doubling up of an Infosys again, but we will surely see Infosys riding the rally quite smartly up. And I'm not limiting my discussion to Infosys alone. You will have other large cap IT names also following suit. Wipro has also done phenomenally well in the past 1 year, if I were to single out any other IT company to just name a few. And I think with the US opening up in terms of its economy and showing a sharp rebound, should augur really well for most of the IT companies who are US facing. So would remain upbeat in terms of the IT sector, would in fact suggest investors to be overweight on the sector.
That's the take coming in on IT. Where are banks right now? Let's check in on the banking pack as well. Well, yesterday turned out to be a big day for financials led by Bajaj Finance. Today, as I see, Bajaj Finserv at least is down about 1.3%, and I think Bajaj Finance as well is a bit of a laggard. Not as much. It's mildly up, about 0.3%. 61.32 is where that stock is. Kunal, after yesterday's big breakouts, let's check in on these divergent trends, because typically Finserv and Finance move in tandem with each other, but today is not quite the case. What's your reading on the charts for both?
So for Bajaj Finance specifically, I think it's a good move because even though the stock is a bit flattish, it's performed very well yesterday. It managed to lead up the chart, so that was the best part about the stock. It was one of the more leader stocks in a market which was falling, or seeing a follow-through price action on the downside yesterday. So I think on the back of Bajaj Finance and some outperformance on banking names, we saw the markets being more resilient yesterday as well. And even though these stocks move up to a new level, so these are large cap names which you're talking about. And when these stocks break out of their psychological resistances, it's a very natural reaction that these stocks gradually consolidate, take some time off. The indicators cool off, the volumes ebb off, profit booking happens, and variety of those strategies they take place into these names. And once that happens, once that settles off, the stock gets ready for one more round of up move. So I believe that these are essentially very good moves which you see into stock prices, because after a couple of days of rally or after 1 or 2 days of rally, if you see the stock graduating and staying low rather than not correcting very sharply, that's a very mature reaction from the stocks. Specifically for Bajaj Finance, I believe that at the data on options as well as on the F&O side, I would expect that 6250, 6300 should be the next level of targets for the very near term. And for Bajaj Finserv, on the other hand, I would expect closer to 12,000, 12,200 as the next set of a short-term target for itself.
Mahantesh, on that note, we'll let you go. Thanks so much for joining in. As we take a break, let's hear it out from Samira Chakrabarti as well as Surendra Goyal from Citi India. They talk about the impact of the second economy.
The way we are looking at things is that in the first quarter, where the brunt of the second wave would be felt, the impact will be less than the first wave first quarter. The reason being that the economy has started understanding how to live with the virus, and this is not just India but globally. What we are observing is that the extent to which the lockdown related restrictions are compared to that, the impact on economic activity is much lower. Also, we have to understand that this time around the restrictions itself were done in a more nuanced fashion. So certain kinds of industrial activities and construction activities, etc., they were still allowed. So we can see it in our data that those segments of the economy have not been impacted as much. The open question is that how much or how fast do we get out of this mess? Is it going to be as fast as the first wave where the pent-up demand really took us up very sharply, or is it going to be slower? We have taken a call that maybe the pace of recovery is going to be a tad slower than what we had observed during the first wave. And that's not because of the damage to the income or jobs of the households, but it's more because of the sentiment factor. The RBI's consumer confidence survey is showing that the consumer confidence today is even weaker than what it was during the first wave. So that makes us a bit cautious in saying that maybe the pace of the recovery is going to be somewhat lower than what we had thought during the first wave.
Okay, Samira, my immediate follow-up question is that there is a big naysayer club, and the naysayer club has the following opinion, which is that inflation is high, this wave has impacted savings, sentiment will remain subdued, and supply chain in a sense have got disrupted, and the rural economy this time has taken a hit. What would you argue in front of that naysayer club who is really writing an obituary in terms of an economic recovery?
Well, theoretically, all of those arguments are possible. The key question is to understand that to what extent these factors will be counteracted by the sentiment factor. This is an economy which is extremely young and a dynamic economy. Everyone has to move out, or a lot of people has to move out to earn their living. And in that kind of an economy, the moment the virus curve comes down and the moment the vaccination gathers pace, the sentiment could turn quite quickly as well.
Welcome back. It's certainly turning out to be a fabulous Friday for the equity markets as we're perched at record highs. IT is really fueling those gains. But apart from that, you've got the metals index and fine fettle, pharma not doing too bad, and auto as well rather supportive. We've ebbed off, mind you, when it comes to the broader universe. So you can see some of those gains having petered off. NADA up just about 0.2% for the mid-cap index. Nonetheless, there continue to remain quite a few high flyers in today's trading session. Within the broader markets, including the likes of eClerx, Future Consumer, VRL, Viatech, as well as NBCC, Navbharat, Thyrocare and DCB. Well, let's get a move on then and keep it with some news and updates. And we understand that the ED has issued a show cause notice to WazirX. Let's take it across then to my colleague Karishma, who joins in with all the details. What are the allegations, Karishma, and what is the current stance from the ED?
Well, right, what we're picking up, and it's actually an official release that has come in, is that ED has issued a show cause notice to WazirX and its directors Nishil Shetty and Sameer Mhatre on June 11th, and this is for violating guidelines in connection with transactions which are worth almost more than 2,000 crores. So now this is a very comprehensive and a complex allegation that ED has put under FEMA, which is the Foreign Exchange Management Act 1999. It's also mentioned that there have been certain, ED has claimed that Chinese nationals had laundered their proceeds of crimes worth about more than 57 crore by converting this Indian rupee to cryptocurrency, and these have been taken through different kind of accounts on WazirX. The agency has set to use WazirX. The agency says that WazirX is the platform that was used, and this gives rise to some kind of money laundering that is involved. So it's a show cause notice that's issued, and that's the only confirmed information we have right now. The process ahead could be summoned as per procedural investigation method, but there is not much information on that as of now.
Karishma, since we have you with us, give us details on what the empowered group of ministers, given that they're meeting to decide an import duty cut on edible oil in the next 3 days, and that the government is considering an import duty cut on edible oil because of the rising global prices. What exactly is in the works?
Well, right, what we're picking up from sources, as you know, edible oil prices have been shooting high. The government intervention is finally coming across, and sources have been hinting us that a group of ministers, empowered group of ministers meeting is going to happen anytime soon. That is going to be either today, tomorrow, or day after, where the government is going to take a likely decision on import duty cut on edible oil. In fact, sources say that a cut is imminent, keeping in mind that the prices have nearly doubled in a period of 1 year. Let's not forget that 70% of our country is dependent on imports when it comes to edible oil, and our consumption is also very high in that regard, and we have a 35% import duty currently on palm oil, crude soy oil that we impose. So a cut is imminent, but in what way is the government going to pan this out, and when the announcement comes, is something definitely to look forward, because demand has been, of course, the demand has been high, but the supply terms, the consumers have not been able to take it up a lot, especially the one in the rural areas, because of the pricing. There's been a 25% fall in demand due to higher prices. So an intervention is necessary, a must, and may happen soon.
Okay, Karishma, we'll leave it at that. Thanks very much for both those updates. We're going to take a very quick break. On that note, with news that we're holding up less than 0.5% higher, breadth largely even Steven. Marginally, its advantage declines today within the F&O listed universe. We're going to take a break. When we come back, the last lap of trading session this week.
Welcome back. Let's connect with Sudeep Bandopadhyay as well, who's joining in on the show. Sudeep, hi there, good afternoon. And it's turning out to be a strong day for the equity markets. We're exhibiting resilience across the board, having breached some record high levels for the markets. Do you reckon that we are likely to see the strength only continue and build up now that fears of the second wave as well are behind? We're seeing activities resume normalcy. Companies as well that have managed to withstand the COVID second wave quite smartly are only poised to do better and better from here on?
Absolutely, Aman. I think, a few things are happening. One is, as you rightly said, the unlock from the second wave has started already happening. We are seeing it in Maharashtra. Some other states are announcing or will be announcing, we believe, shortly. So the unlock is in full sweep. The monsoons have been good so far, and I think the predictions of normal monsoon as well as proper distribution is there. So that's also good news for the markets. Corporate performance also has been by and large better than expected in Q4. Of course, Q1 is going to be a problem quarter, but that's pretty much factored in by the markets. Finally, I think the liquidity continues to remain very, very high. We were doing some numbers, and it's very clear that domestic mutual funds have about 11 lakh crore of equity funds available with them for deployment. The insurance companies, other than LIC, has probably similar amount. It's difficult to estimate the exact amount. And this now 22 lakh crore doesn't include the HNI money. Now the HNI and retail money you put on top of it, there is significant pool of liquidity available in the domestic market, and on top of that you have the significant liquidity sitting with the FIIs, who definitely will look at India positively going forward, and they are even today because of the GDP growth rate which we are even now projecting. It's come down from that double-digit number to a single-digit number of between 8.5 and 9.5 somewhere, depending on whose estimate you are going to work on. But the fact remains this is significantly higher than many other markets, and FIIs will find it attractive to invest in India. So that's what our base case scenario is, that Indian market will continue to retain its positive bias and will continue to inch upwards. The pace of growth will not be so frantic like we have seen in the recent past, but it will keep moving upwards.
Sudeep, everyone seems to be talking about this digital tilt and companies adapting and pivoting to new technologies and transformation. How are you looking at playing this entire space? Coincidentally, you've got the IT index as well, which is perched at record highs. But even if not direct pure play traditional IT companies, how are you playing this space?
Our views on IT, I have articulated in your shows earlier as well. We have been very bullish. We believe there is a re-rating happening for Indian IT, and this phase will last probably the next 2-3 years. What we had been expecting to happen over a decade is now happening over a very short span of time, predominantly on the back of COVID. The digital has got a significant impetus. Work from home has accelerated the pace. To select companies, of course, you can play safe by going with Infosys or a TCS or HCL or even Wipro. I think that's a very standard recommendation, and you can actually even now buy these stocks for a steady, stable return over the next, maybe 1 year plus time horizon. But if you want to be a little aggressive and focus on the digital piece of the business and the emerging segments of the business, which includes robotics, which includes obviously AI and machine learning, ML, I think my pick there will be Happiest Minds. I think they have a very experienced management. They are in the right segment. By the virtue of starting late, they are focusing on the right segments. A significant part of their business is already digital, and they are moving into newer and newer technologies. So even at current levels, I think if I have to play the digital kind of game, I will look at Happiest Minds, and I will recommend that even at current levels.
Okay, Happiest Minds it is that Sudeep is flagging off. But let's get a move on then and focus in on more news and updates. The GST rate cut announcement on COVID related supplies has come out. Let's take it across to my colleague Ruchi Bhatia, who joins in with all those details. Ruchi?
All eyes will be on the GST Council meeting that will take place tomorrow. This is coming in the aftermath of the group of ministers that have made their recommendations with respect to GST rate relief on vaccines and various other COVID-related relief materials as well. We're given to understand that the group of ministers has suggested that the rates for COVID-related vaccines should remain unchanged and be kept at 5%, else it could hurt the interest of domestic manufacturers. However, they have suggested relief relief in terms of drugs such as amphotericin and tocilizumab, where they have suggested the rates be brought down from 5% to nil. On the other hand, for remdesivir, they have suggested from the current 12% GST rate, it should be brought down to 5%, and a slew of other relief should be brought forth for items such as medical grade oxygen, oxygen concentrators, ventilators, BiPAP machine, COVID testing kits, as well as pulse oximeters, where the rates should be brought down from 12% to 5%. They have also suggested, as far as the relief is concerned, it should be for a limited period. However, they have not suggested any changes to the rates for PPE kits, N95 masks, as well as ambulances as well. Needs to be seen how the GST Council will be taking a look at the GOM's recommendations, given the fact that various states, including Delhi, West Bengal, Punjab, had asked the centre as well as the GST Council to take a more compassionate approach, given the fact that the country was dealing with the second wave of COVID-19 and had suggested for a zero rated tax or a nominal tax on all COVID related relief material. So tomorrow's meeting is going to be an important one. It will be taking up a single agenda of taking up the GOM's recommendations on providing some sort of a relief as the country is dealing with the second wave of the COVID pandemic.
Okay, Ruchi, we'll leave it at that. AU Small Finance Bank, that's the one which is scaling higher today. Almost a 6% spot is what you're seeing on the stock price. And then, of course, SAIL, after its Q4 numbers got delivered yesterday post markets, that also is holding up a solid 5.25%. So these are a couple of names which are actually holding out. So Deep, just wanted your assessment on the entire banking pack, because we've seen very divergent views and commentaries from each and every bank. HDFC Bank flagged off concerns with regards to their gross net NPAs. Ever since then, the stock has sort of underperformed the rest of the bank basket. There seems to be a clear tilt and shift towards the corporate facing banks and dominant ones like an ICICI Bank, which have been holding out. Where within banks are you finding comfort to add fresh positions?
But if you are a little aggressive investor, I think you should look at some of the PSU banks definitely now. Yes, there are asset quality challenges they had, and there are a lot of other niggling issues regarding the management and etc. But as things stand today, the way the unlock is happening, the way the expectations are of a lot of capex happening, both in the public as well as the private sector, the expectation of continuation of loose monetary policy, I think all this works in favor of some of the private sector, public sector banks which are grossly undervalued. So I'd like to point out here two of the leading PSU banks, PNB as well as Bank of Baroda. I think we don't have to talk about their size, their network, and their position in the market. But the fact is, the asset quality has always been a concern. I think with the NCLT process reaching some stage in the near future, should see some of the recoveries coming in. Some aggressive regulatory action will also see some recoveries happening, and the second COVID wave may not be as harmful to their asset quality as the first wave had been. So at the current level of 43, 44 for PNB and about 84, 85 for Bank of Baroda, I think makes tremendous sense to acquire these for significant upside. But as I mentioned, you need to be a little aggressive investor. Some market movement may bring them down even further. But if you take a 6-month to 12-month time horizon, these are probably the best picks at this stage. If you want to play safe, I will recommend SBI. It's moved up quite a bit. It's hovering around 430 levels, 430, 41 levels. But the strength of SBI beyond their own balance sheet and performance is the strength of its subsidiaries. All of them, whether it's a life insurance, whether it's a general insurance, or the asset management piece, the cards business, all of them are performing exceedingly well. And strategic divestment or the public offers with some of these may see will lead to further gains for SBI. So I think if you want to play safe, SBI. If you want to be aggressive, BOB and PNB.
Okay, that's quite interesting. PSUs, that seems to be the pack which is favored right now. Rajesh, clearly it was SBI after its earnings and the commentary which sort of led the charge for the rub-off on the rest of the PSU pack as well. And then, of course, you had a PNB, Can Bank, BOB as well. See that rub-off actually play in. Where within PSBs do you find fresh trading opportunities on the long side?
Yeah, after a run-up, all PSU banks are, now in consolidation mode. But looking at the overall setup, we believe that, Bank of Baroda as well as SBI, these two stocks can do well from the current level. And for SBI, we believe that, if stock continues to hold above 410 level, then possible upside target we can see in short-term basis towards 465 to 470. So SBI, one can, buy and accumulate the stock from the current level also. And Bank of Baroda is also looking attractive, after a corrective move since last 4-5 weeks, we have seen stock is in uptrend, and looking at the data setup, we believe that as Bank of Baroda can rally further from the current level, and chart pattern suggesting that the short term target for Bank of Baroda could be around 96 to 98 level from the current level. One can buy and accumulate the stock in range of 84 to 81, keep stop loss of 78 to buy Bank of Baroda also.
Let's get a move on and also find out what the outlook is on the greed and fear by Chris Wood in the current scenario. Let's take it across then to Vivek, who joins in with the latest takeaways from that report. Vivek.
In his latest newsletter, Chris Wood of Jefferies, in his latest Greed and Fear, has written in depth about oil prices, how he believes that oil demand at this point of time is escalating, and he is also worried that further rising oil prices may actually lead to a further inflation scare that we are already witnessing across the globe. What he is saying is that Greed and Fear at this point of time has a positive view as far as oil prices are concerned. In fact, he says that oil is most likely going to be acting as a catalyst for the escalation of the inflation scare. He's saying oil is most likely going to react, number one, to booming demand as well as lack of supply and receding supply as far as oil producing nations are concerned. He's saying that demand is definitely coming back quite strongly and should soon rebound to a new record as well. He's saying that the inflation is accelerating in America, and this is also partly due to the base effect that is being seen. He's also saying that there has been a significant rise as far as world crude oil demand is concerned from second quarter 2020 to the first quarter of 2021. He's saying as far as investing and traders are concerned, he believes that investors should continue to own the reopened trade or the cyclical trade as he calls it. He's saying that the best pair trade according to him is to go long as far as energy stocks are concerned and to go short as far as profitless thematic technology stocks are concerned.
Alright, that's a view coming in from the Greed and Fear report. Meantime, Sudeep, let's also understand how you're looking at the media space. Incidentally, we've been talking about how this sector has put on smart gains in the last quarter, in the last week. It's been one of the best performing sectors as well. Where does media stand according to you?
I think it's an interestingly positioned. The couple of stocks I'd like to mention here. One is Sun TV, the other is Z. I think both look good to me. Sun TV has moved up from its earlier lower levels, and I believe there is still significant opportunity considering that Sunnext has started doing exceedingly well, and the kind of library they have, I think in Tamil should stand them in good state as far as their OTT platform is concerned. The ad revenues have started pouring in now, and with the unlock happening, I think, and economy picking up, I think this will gather further momentum. As far as Z is concerned, I think the concern regarding the promoter and the management and all those issues to an extent have been addressed, but I think still there are lingering doubts if and when there will be some further clarification and clarity on the role of management, I think that for Z can move up even further. Overall, the channels are doing well. There are certain concerns on their OTT platform and certain concerns regarding the costly acquisitions they have made in the recent past. But in spite of that, on a valuation basis, it does look attractive at current levels. The only the question mark or risk factor is the clarity on the shareholding and promoter and the management kind of stand. I think that coming, this can move up even further.
Sudeep, where do you stand when it comes to the entire consumption space? Incidentally, Monday we're having quite an interesting discussion, as to how there has been a change in the overall consumer preference owing to the pandemic. Do you think that now it's time for urban to perhaps outpace the rural recovery? And in light of this, which companies do you think have adapted well to these changes in consumer behavior, and what's the outlook?
I have a slightly different take on this entire rural-urban discussions. While there is a strong view that rural has a problem as far as this COVID wave is concerned, I agree on the healthcare front and on the life front. But if you come back to the livelihood part, I think rural India is very well positioned. The agri-commodity prices are at all-time high. The MSPs have once again been increased. There is a good monsoon on cards, and the government schemes continue to give a lot of benefits to rural India. Even the food grain scheme, which was supposed to be ending, has been extended till end of October. So this augurs well for the income and cash in hand as far as rural India is concerned. Yes, they have a problem in terms of the healthcare issues because of COVID, but the money supply to rural India hasn't come down. So the consumption in rural India, or the trends of consumption we saw in rural India, will not see drastically any change. So I continue to believe that rural consumption will lead the way forward. Yes, urban consumption also will pick up post the COVID wave. There will be some revenge buying and things like that. But the fact remains that rural India will lead, and the companies having good rural distribution will not only benefit in the coming days, but they will benefit for a very, very long time, because rural consumption is definitely lagging behind in the overall pie of consumption as far as India is concerned. So I will go for companies having good rural distribution. I will go for a Dabur. I'll go for a HUL if I have to play a little safe, and I will go for some of the smaller companies like Emami if I am a little aggressive as far as rural consumption is concerned.
That's quite interesting. Sudeep, just to the point that you were earlier making on the kind of government mandate we're hearing, which is only going to boost commodity linked plays, and top comes to mind is the government's thrust now on ethanol. The fact that the Ministry of Road and Transport and Highways as well has given the mandate that vehicles be looking or considering ethanol as an alternate fuel as well, and that should be applicable in the next 1 year or so. What could it do to the fortunes of Praj here?
I think it's going to be a significant game changer for the entire sugar and related industry. There was a major problem in the sugar industry because of oversupply, and this we used to kind of face every single year. And there were the global market prices changing, and there used to be a glut, there used to be a fall in prices, and the entire Pandora's box used to get opened up every year. I think with ethanol blending limits getting increased and the timeline for that getting subsequently accelerated helps the sugar industry overall in a big way. I think it's, again, I will repeat, it's a game changer for the industry. Of course, it's a fact that sugar prices globally are stable, and with Thailand and Brazil production not being what they used to be, I think it can further go up. So this is excellent news. So for Praj Industries, which has got a couple of other verticals as well, we believe that This is going to help them. The ethanol blending is going to help them in a big way. Their other verticals also incidentally are performing well. So we are positive on Praj. We are also positive on some of the sugar companies. Triveni Engineering, which hasn't moved up as much as the other the sugar stocks, can be looked at even at current levels. If somebody has a slightly long-term view, they can buy one of the frontline sugar companies as well. Let's say a Sri Renuka Sugars or a Banari Amman, they can look at.
Sudeep, great to have you on the show as always. Thanks for joining in. 0.5% higher roughly, that's how we're shutting shop, around 15,800 levels, marginally in favor of the declines. That's how the F&O breadth has been. Let me take it across to Jayesh, find out what the dealing room chatter is as we wind up on trade this week.
Aisha, it's been a steady week for the frontline indices, so there has been not much complaints coming in from the dealing room. In fact, it has been good going for the broader markets, and today also we are seeing a lot of stock-specific action, that is there in individual stocks. But the big event that the market will be watching out for next week will be the FOMC outcome, the Nifty has of course consolidated with a positive bias. However, it is important to note that we are trading at the upper end of the range. The Nifty Bank has been stable near the 35,000 mark, but like I was telling you, there's been real action in the broader market space. So the dealing rooms are suggesting that NBCC and Motilal Oswal are at the verge of a breakout of their range, and that is happening with a big volume bar as well. And metal stocks are making a comeback. So the likes of SAIL, Tata Steel, JSPL and JSW Steel, these are on the buying radar of traders as well. And of course from the F&O space we have seen good accumulation come in for Aurobindo as well as Tata Motors at lower levels, and once again they are now headed back to their previous highs.
For giving us that snapshot, and let's wind down then the markets. Well, by and large, it's been a fairly steady week for us despite the two-day aberration. You did have the markets recover, prove their might and come out stronger, and how. In fact, today we went on to hit a high of 15,835, only to wrap up the day at a record close of 15,800 levels. Scaling new peaks clearly. For the Sensex, it's a 200-point notch up, 52,498, and while the broader market may have come off a tad, nonetheless it's been a steady day. You've got support coming in from the IT index, record highs here, and you've got metals as well as pharma, energy, autos, they've joined in the party. Real estate, media, PSU banks, not to mention the Nifty Bank as well, has been a little bit tempered in today's trade. Take you through then the top performers. It's Coal India that's done well, Tata Steel, JSW Steel clearly stealing the show, Dr. Reddy's, TCS, Infosys riding high, fueling gains on the IT index along with HCL Technologies. Reliance Industries, Sun Pharma, M&M, Maruti as well as Wipro have been some of the notable outperformers, while HDFC Bank sees a cut of about 1%. Axis Bank in the red, L&T, Divi's Laboratories, M&M Financial as well as IOC. Those are some of the stocks that have taken a back seat. To the newsmakers then, and Bajaj Finance in focus as they spoke about the launch in October for their tech platform, sees significant business optimization over FY22. Meantime, TCS is talking about their redesigning of the global supply chain, the kind of returns that they've provided their investors and how they're going to benefit from the multi-year tech upgradation. Coal India lifts the embargo on exporting coal procured via spot and specially auction. Ashoka Bilcon is the lowest bidder in an NHAI project. Goa Carbon, that one is seeing a result reaction as well playing out, so that stock has been in the news. Meantime, SAIL reacting to its numbers. It's been a dhamaka set for eClerx, which came out with its earnings. Suven in an agreement to process technology transfer and manufacture anti-COVID drugs. Within the broader universe, VA Tech, NBCC, Thyrocare, VRL, DCB, nothing short of spectacular gains. Kaplan Point, Greaves Cotton, Hindustan Copper too joining the party. On the flip side, Gayatri Projects, DHFL, Jaicorp, GE Shipping, Colte Patil, IBREL and Carborundum, some of the losers in trade. But nonetheless, it's been a steady day of trade and a steady week at that. Naresh, how have we performed for the week gone by, and walk us through what exactly you'll be watching for now as we're gunning towards 16K. Kunal, that is.
So Avan, yes, the markets could probably be getting back towards the thick of momentum. It was a good week for the markets because this was more of a balanced week. You didn't see flashy moves coming across any of these key large cap names, and I think it was more to do with the markets just about fiddling with the 15,700 and 15,800 mark for the good part of this week. You saw a lot of other sectors, the tier 2 sectors making a comeback, like the power stocks made a fabulous comeback for themselves. We saw some strong moves coming across in the metal names. So a lot of positives to take away, and I think it's, again, as I said, it's more of a balanced reaction from the market, which is what something to take note of. Now the other important point to watch out for is on the banking index, because in the last 2 or 3 days specifically, the bank Nifty has somehow underperformed the Nifty. So I think if there is any kind of a catch up to play out for the markets overall, I think it has to be led by the banking index. So the next week, the start of the next week would be very crucial, because if the bank Nifty performs, then I believe that the markets can get much more stronger, and the Nifty can even head towards the breakout of that 16,000 mark.
Okay, thanks very much. Today we've rallied for the Nifty for the 4th week on the trot, posting the longest winning streak since December 2020. Gentlemen, good to have you on board on the show. Have a good weekend. We'll wind it down right here on the show. Keep it with ET now.